Thank you for joining us on another Comics Pals review episode. Today we're here to tackle M.O.D.O.K. This is the Hulu stop animation series that features M.O.D.O.K. In his kind of like coming out party debut. M.O.D.O.K. is not a character I would say is super popular, but he's kind of a fringe character. I think a lot of people kind of like him, but he hasn't had that moment yet. I'm sure he's been on some other television show, like one of the various Avengers animated series at some point or
Probably.
another. Yeah,
I feel like his
but this,
biggest media appearance aside from this is like Marvel vs. Capcom 3, right?
yeah,
Like
absolutely, yep. And when he was in that, I thought, okay, it's M.O.D.O.K. time.
yeah, you're
But
like,
here
"Oh
we
shit.
are,
He's about to get
yeah,
the bump."
almost a decade later, and he's finally getting his TV show. This show was announced originally a long time ago, uh, at least a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And then there were issues with Marvel Television and that kind of folding. But we finally got the show with Patton Oswalt playing M.O.D.O.K. And this seemed like a character he was really passionate about playing.
Yeah, I think he
Um,
co-wrote the first episode too, or he might have just wrote the script. But I know he's also like one of the showrunners and like one of the producers and stuff. So I know he's been like very instrumental in getting it off the ground. I guess because he just loves M.O.D.O.K.
yeah, which is, hey, cool. A
I
lot
mean,
of
I know
people
he's a
do.
comics geek, so it's not that surprising that he loves a fucking obscure ass Marvel villain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just before we start talking about the series, do want to let you guys know where you can find us all over the internet. We are, of course, the Comics Pals. We talk about these characters that you love in all the places you can find them. Every single Monday, our main show drops where we are doing news, reviews, and hard-hitting interviews. So come hang out with us for that. We also talk about industry news as well. So if you're into that stuff, listen to our main show. Leave us a like and a comment and a share. Follow this podcast wherever it is that you're listening to it. If that's YouTube, hit the subscribe button so that you can support our show. All that's free to do, and it helps us out a lot more than it costs you. And if you want to write in, you can do so at thecomicspals@gmail.com. Let's talk about M.O.D.O.K. So I like M.O.D.O.K. M.O.D.O.K. is cool. I was hoping to see M.O.D.O.K. Make an appearance in a Captain America movie. I think that the character has just the right kind of malicious edge, but also humor to make it in the MCU. First of all, what do you guys think about the decision to make this a stop motion, robot chicken, Family Guy-esque type of thing?
Um, so I think it's an interesting choice for sure, but it's one that definitely vibed with me. I am a big fan of Robot Chicken, and I saw actually Seth Green was a producer on this as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's some creative crossover between the two teams. But I think I think with a character like M.O.D.O.K, this is actually a pretty cool way to like give him a little bit more exposure and not necessarily get him over in the way that like an appearance in an MCU movie would be. But I
Yeah.
think the idea of a character as obscure and frankly as weird as M.O.D.O.K, right? Like he's a goofy looking guy. Making him happen on the big screen would take a lot of special effects. I could see how ex creator or whatever who's like, I want to make a Captain America movie with M.O.D.O.K. They're like, all right, maybe not.
Let's
This
wait.
this feels like a fucking smart way to get him over because M.O.D.O.K is a character who, like you said, he's a fucking, I'd say like a C-lister at best. If you know him and you like him, that's cool, but how often have you had the opportunity to even be exposed to him? So to take something that is like very off the wall in a, stop motion, which there's really only one other like major show that has that style. It's a comedy. There's no other Marvel show or property right now that's a pure comedy. Let alone like an adult comedy, right? Like it's a little darker. It's like a little bit like, it kind of feels like reminiscent of like the notes that DC's hitting with like the Harley Quinn show right now, which
Yeah.
I haven't seen, but I've heard a lot about, and that seems to be what it is really doing really well. So I think like kind of all of those things coupled with a comedian of Patton Oswalt's, not just experience, but name recognition, right? Like, he's a famous stand-up. He's a big voice actor. He's a name, you know? This show being Hulu's M.O.D.O.K, starring Patton Oswalt, is probably the best elevator pitch you're ever going to get for that character in terms of, like, putting him on Front Street in a way that is, like, unique and not just another superhero show or an appearance on another superhero show, right? Like, so I think for all that, as much as it seems like a weird idea, and it was one I really wasn't sure how it was going to play out, after just watching that first episode, I really liked it. And I thought it felt fresh, and it felt like a good idea.
How about you, Kale?
Yeah, I think the move for stop motion and animation is definitely the way to go for a character like this. Because I think, I mean, it would be very similar to a Howard the Duck. I think it's one of those things that when you, and we've talked about this on the show, you know, when you get to a point of saturation, you have to start experimenting with different flavors of what you like. And so now, hopefully, we're kind of starting to experiment with those flavors. So I think, like, this makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, it had to be this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have I don't have a love for stop motion or the kind of like Robot Chicken style humor. So this isn't my flavor. But it certainly seems competently made. And
yeah,
there were a few moments of like, oh, that was funny. I might not have laughed out loud, but it was, you know, good gags and stuff like that. I think M.O.D.O.K lends himself really well to that kind of like weird offbeat humor.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
They chose situations like, for example, M.O.D.O.K being a dad, right? What the hell? You know, what?
I thought that was such a funny premise for him.
Yeah, it's on its face, it's funny. Like, you wouldn't even think about that. I never thought about M.O.D.O.K's home life. And so the creative team behind this show really sat down and said, okay, well, what are the ways that we can maximize on the weird factor with this character and do things that are offbeat enough to kind of tilt you to be leaning in towards laughing at what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And that was smart. And those things, those moments definitely worked.
I thought one of the funniest moments of the episode for me, because we've only watched the first one so far, the whole thing's available. That's the end of the first episode when his wife says she wants to get divorced. And she's just like, yeah, you know what? I think I want a divorce. And she walks away and he's like, you dare divorce M.O.D.O.K? Like, that got such a pop out of me. And I think that, like, there's a lot of good kind of like playing with your knowledge as like a Marvel fan, like when there's like the fucking whatever, I forget the name of the tech company that's like trying to buy out AIM, and they're like whining and dining M.O.D.O.K, and they go to like Fing Fang Foom's restaurant, like I forget what the name of it was, but it was a pun, and like Fing Fang Foom, like, or at least someone who looks like him, is like the fucking waiter and like brings out a plate of like, you know, like squid and breathes fire on it, like stupid shit like that, you know. So yeah, I think it hits all the right notes for this kind of comedy and like the kind of beats that you want to hit, while also like still really feeling like a Marvel property, you know? Like, it doesn't feel like it's just doing the Marvel thing just because, oh, well, if we put M.O.D.O.K's name on it, then it's Marvel, and then like that's part of the machine. Like, it feels like there's a real like a care and a love for it, you know, and that like we're making fun of it, but like we know it well enough to actually make fun of it, not just be like, lol, comics, right?
Yeah, and that's the best thing I can say about the show, is that there was enough care and time put into it and creative drive to make like, there's no reason to make the show.
No,
If
not at all.
it's not like, okay, we really need to do something with Captain America. Like he's like, it's Captain America. We got to do something. Uh, no one cares about M.O.D.O.K enough to where you just have to do this. So
Except Patton Oswalt, apparently.
I don't think the show even gets made if Patton Oswalt's not attached to it. So those are the best things I can say about it. Is it something that I'm gonna like watch beyond our recording this right now? No, because it's just not for me. Kale, you said you watched the second episode. Did it do anything more for you? Because clearly you didn't care for the first one.
It sets up a little bit more plot to push the season forward, which could be interesting. But yeah, similar to you, like it didn't do a ton for me. I feel like I had my moment where this style of humor really hit me, but it just doesn't work for me anymore. And similar to Pete, like I do really admire the stop motion animation and the way, seeing Robot Chicken from when I first saw it when I was 11 or whatever to now, that's incredible. But that's about the novelty I got out of it, really.
One thing that I really was kind of surprised by was all the different characters that weren't M.O.D.O.K, like Iron Man. I was like, whoa, wait, I didn't think we were gonna see Iron Man. And then the Super Adaptoid, which is so random. I haven't thought about that character in years, and then here he is.
And I love that, like, his whole bit is like, and then I come in, right? No. You're the latter.
Yeah, there were some good moments, and it's funny because, like, I laughed more just now you saying it than I did when I saw it. But there were fun bits and gimmicks, and again, if you are into that style of comedy, if that type of show works for you, you will enjoy this. I'm notoriously not a fan of comedies.
I hate laughter.
Well, it's funny because going into this review, I was very interested to see how you guys would feel about it. Like, I kind of assumed that you two would be the most likely, like, iffy candidates for it. But yeah, I definitely think that you're right, Sean, that I think if this kind of show appeals to you, I think that there's something there for you. And I think, like, for me, I was definitely a real Adult Swim kid. So, like, I had a period where, like, I was very into Robot Chicken. I don't know when the last time I watched it was. It's like, could have been easily 5, 6, 7 years ago. So I think coming back to this style, it kind of felt fresh to me again because that's really the only other comparison. And I really like stop motion. Like, in general, I'm a big fan of animation. So the fact that this is, like, a big budget, like, attached to a major IP stop motion show, I think is really cool on its face. And I think if you appreciate that style at all, the show looks fucking amazing. Like, there's like some action in it, like there's like a fight scene, and it's really well shot and really well edited. And I think, like, that alone is enough for me that I think, like, if you're a fan of animation and comedy, it's fresh. And that is, I think, enough to check it out. But I think on top of that, I thought the writing was really good. Like, the script of the first episode is tight, and there's a lot of, it's like very, like, rapid. There's a lot of jokes, which I think for some people can kind of be exhausting. But I think kind of the benefit of that, especially in animation, is that, like, some of them are physical jokes, some of them are actually written jokes, and, like, if one doesn't hit for you, there's like 4 or 5 more coming. So, like, one of them will probably get a rise out of you, So I think for all that, like, again, I've only watched the first episode, but I walked away feeling like, oh wow, like this was a lot better than I expected, and I'm eager to go back and finish the other 9 that there are. I don't know that it's gonna be like I'm gonna rush to go watch it, like this weekend and binge through the whole fucking thing, but I definitely am eager to get through the rest of it and kind of formulate a more fleshed out opinion on it. Because yeah, I mean, when you're talking about big IP holders and stuff like that, like they are so risk averse. The fact that this show exists is like, frankly, kind of insane. You know, like it's like if you told me 5-10 years ago that there was going to be a stop animation M.O.D.O.K comedy, family comedy, no less, in the style of Robot Chicken starring Patton Oswalt, I probably would have been concerned for you. So yeah, the fact that
5 years ago, that's probably when this was announced, actually.
I mean, shit, it was a couple years ago now. I remember they announced this and then Howard the Duck Show and like one other really obscure character.
Was it Hellcat?
Maybe, yeah.
I feel like I remember Chelsea Lately was attached to it.
I think
whatever
you're right.
her real name is.
Yeah, Handler, I think.
Yes, Chelsea Handler.
And I think Kevin Smith was attached to maybe Howard the Duck or one of the other ones, but
yeah.
But yeah, so I think the fact that this exists is like super cool, and it's definitely for me. So if you are like me and any of the things that I said like stand out to you, I would recommend you give it a shot. I think it's definitely one of the most original, interesting original pieces of programming from Hulu as well, which is something that I think they've kind of struggled to find their voice in. So, yeah, I would say I was a big fan of the first episode, and I'm eager to ride the rest of the ride.
Cool. Well, that's going to do it for our review of M.O.D.O.K, Hulu's M.O.D.O.K episode 1. If you enjoyed it, if you watched the rest of the show, and it's for you, that's awesome. Definitely write in and let us know your thoughts about this series. You can get us at thecomicspals@gmail.com, or wherever you're listening to this, there's a comment section. Throw your comment there. While you're thinking of us, make sure you hit that follow, leave us a like. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, drop us a comment, share the video with your friends. All those things are free to do, and they help us out a lot more than they cost you. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.
Make sure you subscribe, or I'll vaporize your arm.
See you next review.